Hey everyone, welcome back. As always, I'm Sum.
And I'm Koaty, and this is Koaty Sum, and we are the duo that does more than each other.
So welcome back to another episode of In Bed with Koaty and Sumner. That's us,
Me,
your boys,
Here we are.
your favorite
And,
couple.
you know, today I wanted to talk a little about erectile dysfunction, aka ED. I didn't ever really knew exactly when people said what that was when I was younger, what it was. It sounded like a disease,
Well, you hear the word dysfunction. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
I think anytime I hear it now, I just think of that Friends episode where Rachel and Ross are fighting, and she's like, it's not that common. It doesn't happen to everyone, and it is a big deal. Yeah. I don't think I knew what she was talking about until my later 20s.
Well, in that sense, I feel growing up, you always heard about it as just really negative and just something to kind of almost be embarrassed about.
Yeah,
and that it's something that would happen to just something you didn't want to have happen.
Yeah,
That's kind of how I felt growing up.
So I kind of have a little outline today, how I want to kind of discuss this, because it's a lot more in depth than you realize. And for those of people who don't know what ED is, it is when a man is not able to get hard or have a boner.
Doesn't have a boing.
Yeah. isn't
just flopping around.
Functioning down there. Yeah.
Define functioning. I don't know. Some people like a flaccid.
Yeah.
I posted something on Twitter the other day and people were like, oh yeah, I like it like that. But
Yeah.
no, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So the first kind of thing I want to start talking about is just how it does come with age in some instances and just awareness of it. I kind of brought to light how I wasn't aware of it, that Friends, little part of Friends, and, not knowing exactly what it was. For a long time, I thought it was some sort of disease you could catch. You know what I mean? I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it was something that could come with age or mentally or whatever,
Oh, you thought it was a disease? Oh, that's interesting. I never thought that.
I mean, I know what it is for a long time, but I'm saying
I know,
back
but
then,
back
as a
then,
teenager, early 20s. Yeah.
Like a disease means that it's something you catch and you have to work to cure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
obviously it does come with age. That's why, insurance companies don't cover your Viagra until you're 35 or whatever. And I think just awareness of it in general should be taught, even in health, high school, health classes, what ED really is and kind of how it comes about, or, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel like as you've gotten older, it's something that has happened to you, or do you feel like you're the same as you were 10 years ago?
Well, that's not true because we've been together for 5 years.
Well, I'm just asking it so that you could tell everybody.
I can't remember the first time I learned about it, but I think that growing up, you kind of are. The first thing I remember about it is it's something that happens to someone when they get older. I just remember hearing about Viagra as a teenager. It's oh, that's something old men take because they need help getting harder as you get older. And I think that I didn't realize that there are so many things other than age that can factor into that can give someone ED at any point in their life. And so I think that it definitely, I wish it had been talked about maybe a little more freely and there was someone to kind of lean on for questions, because there were a couple instances in my 20s and then it just caused embarrassment, and then once you're embarrassed, then you're overthinking it, which then makes it worse. So it's definitely happened.
Yeah.
And I'm only 34.
Yeah, I definitely, from what I've seen, it is more apparent and happens more when you do get older. That 35, I'm older than 35, and that's kind of when it starts happening. And then there's part of me that thinks, oh, I'm more aware of it now as well, so I'm thinking about it, and I feel like that affects it in some way. And that kind of brings me into my next topic, just the physical versus the mental causes of it. I feel like I've definitely had a lot of ED based on mental challenges that I've been through, like domestic violence, or just, if I'm not feeling my sexiest, sometimes it's hard for me. And so that's, I guess, more of a physical thing that's based off of mentality, kind of hitting both there. I don't know. What do you think, like physical versus mental when it comes to that?
Well, I think they both play a factor.
Yeah.
And I think when it's happened to me most of the time, like when I was in my 20s and it happened, it was a mental thing. And that's something wasn't really taught growing up, that I was always taught growing up, or the way I learned about it was that it's a physical thing. It's something that happens to your body over age, and it's just going to, naturally have a tougher time maybe being at full force all the time I thought, like getting into your 50s and 60s. But then when it happened a few times in my 20s, it was because of something mental that was going on. And then once you psych yourself out, it's like, I didn't really know how to acknowledge it. I didn't know how to maybe go ask for Viagra at the time from my doctor to kind of like overcome the mental that I was going through, which we can dive into that. I don't want to go too far too fast, but I think that it's both. Both can play a big factor. And when you say physical, it could also be that your body's just physically drained. Like if you've had a hard week physically, where your week has been physically demanding, that will also play a factor.
Yeah. You know, I am over that 35 mark, but I feel like, even though you are 35, you should still have a very like appetizing, or I even know progressive, like sex drive,
Yeah.
And I just feel like a lot of it comes from environmental stuff, mentality. I feel like us being in the adult industry, that does play a part. I feel like sometimes we are a little more numb to sex. Like if we're hooking up with someone else, I'm like, I know this person's so hot and I know I'm attracted to this person, but it's just not working down there. Part of me is like, I just don't feel like my body wants or needs sex right now. Like part of it's that too.
Yeah. In my 20s, when that was happening, it was along the lines of that, as I had just gotten out of a relationship that like wasn't going very well throughout, and it was, very much an emotional roller coaster. And once it was over, when I tried to be intimate with other people, there was just like that mental block of just like, this doesn't feel familiar. I'm so used to like the touch or the familiarity of my ex. And so it took a while to be able to let myself mentally be intimate.
Yeah.
It was like hit or miss. It was like, it went from like, the first few months, like it just wasn't happening at all. And then it was like 50-50. I was like, is it going to work? Is it not going to work?
Yeah.
And then like it finally gets to a point where like, all right, you've been single so long, you've kind of checked back into that. But then there were also times after that where it was like, I was ready for another relationship and I didn't want just casual all the time. And so yes, it wouldn't work just because it was like, like this isn't what I want right now. I want more than just the casual hookup.
Well, I feel like, with trauma from exes and stuff, it kind of, when you met me, I was pretty much only a bottom. I'm versed now because you created a comfortable and non-judgmental space for me to feel confident as a top. And I feel like that has helped me not have ED quite as often. But before I met you, I feel like I was only a top because it's not like I didn't like to bottom. It was the pressure and the stress of getting hard in instances where you're just dating and hooking up with people constantly. And I let that really affect me in that way. So it was just easier to be a bottom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see. I mean, I see people that just kind of go into bottoming where they kind of just check out. They wear a jock strap, or they're just not really worried about if they're erect or not. And so I could see why that would become a go-to. But then you also kind of like get numb to the sense of like, all right, everything is casual. None of this means anything. There's not really maybe like barely any connection. And you're just kind of like having sex just to like, because you're having sex.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think wasn't taught enough growing up, that, just like checking in with yourself and if something's going on down there, like, and it's mental, like maybe this isn't what you want fully right now, or you need to work through something. So, or maybe you're stressed,
And that kind of pulls into like the next area I want to talk about, more like lifestyle and health and sexual health. I feel like that plays a part in it. I was taking this medicine. Well, when I was taking anxiety medicine, and then I was taking this medicine to like keep your hair growing when you're older. What's it called? Finasteride. Finasteride. And during that time, my sex drive was low. I wasn't getting hard as often as I should have been. And, doing some research on the anxiety medication I was taking and this finasteride, it was affecting that. And I thought I was going crazy. And when I finally stopped taking this medicine, it came right back. you know? So it's kind of also about like what kind of medication are you taking or what kind of stress are you under? You know, I take a lot of vitamins now. I take something called Macaroot, which ever since I've been taking that, take it every day. It's more like it's an organic vitamin that kind of builds your sex drive. That has helped a lot. So it's kind of just as you're getting older and ED has a higher like probability of affecting you, start looking into these healthier choices that can kind of, you know, help you prosper in that area where maybe you didn't need to do that before. And yeah, I've learned the importance of that, I think, more than anybody. Mm-hmm. But, you know, just also like thinking about health, like when I'm feeling overweight or not liking how I'm looking, you know, that, you know, puts a downer on me being turned on. And I
Do
feel
you think
like
those are two different things though? Like in listening to you say that, I feel like the finasteride and stuff, like that's just low sex drive,
mm-hmm.
like versus like not feeling sexy, but like you're still horny, but when you like aren't feeling sexy or there's like a mental block, that's like kind of when like the erectile, like you're like, I want everything to work, but it's just
you're
not.
unsure about yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to split it up too.
Because if you're just not feeling horny because of medication or anything like that, or like because of then that's a common like finasteride or people taking stuff for hair loss. They don't want to do it because they feel like their sex drive goes down.
Yeah.
I had a few friends that are like, I was on it, but I didn't like that I didn't have a sex drive.
Yeah. So that definitely different. But I think there is a time where they do go hand in hand as well.
Yeah.
So it's just But yeah, feeling like the whole like being healthy just on a normal day helps as well. Not just in every other aspect of your life, but just how you see yourself and your confidence. And if you're not confident in your body and like, I don't know, I feel like that's a big part of it. It is for me anyway.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I think you're sexy all the time.
I appreciate that. But I mean, do you have anything else lifestyle too, you know, did you want to kind of talk about, you know, being in the adult industry and like, since you've started doing stuff in the adult industry, do you think it's affected you more than it did before? Do you think maybe it happens to you more now because you're in the adult industry?
I haven't had ED from working in the industry. I think there's just, you do kind of, I don't want to say get numb, but you do get desensitized a little bit because when you're doing it for work or for performative, it's more performative, that you do get a little desensitized, and when it's just kind of what I'm around, like when we're on Twitter or anything. But I will say, when it comes to us in the bedroom, because we have such our intimacy or our time in the bedroom is not performative, it's about intimacy. Mm-hmm. Like there hasn't been any issue with that. Yeah. You know, I can definitely go and do a shoot one day, and then the next day I'm ready to like have some time with you if you want or I want or whatnot. It's not like I'm like, oh, I did those 2 scenes this week. Like I'm not going to be interested in sex with you for another 2 weeks. You know, like I'm good to go the next day.
Yeah.
But I am desensitized to casual interactions with people. Like I'm not as easily aroused just by a random cute guy flirting with us at a party.
Yeah,
like I'm a little more desensitized.
Men that I would like used to drool over at the bar. Now I'm just like, oh, I know they're hot, but it doesn't faze me anymore.
Yeah, we're just a little desensitized to it. Like I'm still like, oh my gosh, you're so attractive. Like I love this connection if we're flirting or we're talking or meeting somewhere out. But like when it comes to the actual physicality of going to the bedroom, I'm just a little more desensitized. Yeah. But if you're there, then it's usually fine.
Yeah. I'll definitely say, you know, if we do a lot of collabs throughout a week and I am in the mood and we are having a time, like it sometimes does, you know, I get a little ED because it's like, oh, my body maybe has had a little too much fun this week, or, you know, that's something that happens, or I do get a little camera.
Like what do you mean, like you're tired? Or what are you saying?
Or I don't get hard. Like say we had 3 collabs and then you and I are having an intimate moment. You know, yeah, and I don't get hard. It's like, oh, it's like,
I think there's always that like when someone, you know, if you like, I guess just for example, if I had personally satisfied myself, I'm trying not to use too many graphic terms, personally satisfied myself like 3 days in a row, and the next morning you wanted to, you know, go at it, the two of us, like there'd be a difference versus if I hadn't done anything for 3 or 4
for
days,
sure.
and we were having
You need to replenish.
Yeah, you need to replenish. You always need to replenish. So like if
Yeah.
you've gotten off 3 or 4 times in a week, like that 5th time might not be as heavily intense as if you hadn't got off in like 7 days.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's always that. So
Yeah.
that's I wouldn't consider that, and I'm sure you don't like consider that like ED.
Yeah.
That's just your body needs to replenish.
Yeah. Anytime it doesn't get hard and I want it to, I say I have ED.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think I want to go into like kind of the next little topic is, communication in relationships about it. I feel like it is, I would need a straight man here to tell me if it's like easier or harder to tell their female partner versus telling a male partner. I mean, I feel like it's easier for us because we both experience it to be communicate about it if it's happening and understanding. I mean, I feel like it's also easier for you and I because of what we do for work. So, that helps as well. But I would like to get a straight man's perspective on it eventually, if it's something that like they hide from their wife or try to, or is it like frowned upon, or that's where I'm a little curious, because I do have girlfriends and where I don't think it's a big deal, and I hear sometimes older women say, "Oh, it's not a big deal." Like my girlfriends who are single, like it's something they laugh about if a guy can't get it up, or they feel like they aren't attractive enough. And I feel like that's one thing I would want to say is if someone has ED and can't get it up, 90% chance has nothing to do with you.
But it could be that you're not attractive enough.
Or you're just really ugly.
Well, I think that I'm trying to dissect what you were saying about like whether they should bring it up or how they should bring it up. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, or it's easy for us to bring it up because we're two men. Like I would like to know the perspective of.
Well, okay, I will say this. I think and I've heard, and I believe this as well too. Like it doesn't always have to be about orgasming or getting off.
Yeah. Like
intimacy and connection in the bedroom, especially if it's a long-term relationship, doesn't always have to be about both parties getting off, about just the climax. Like it can also be about all the other stuff that you're doing, all the build up, the tease, the intimacy, the feeling of connection, the feeling of physical touch.
But I want to talk more about communicating when someone has ED.
No, I know. I'm just saying, we're saying like if someone's having problems getting hard, like it is also good to like focus on like the other stuff that you can also do in the bedroom if someone's just having some ED.
Yeah.
And enjoying everything.
So your
else
advice to maybe if a straight guy's listening is, if that's happening and it's not working, like satisfy your woman another way. Just don't say, "Oh, I have ED, I can't do anything tonight." There are other ways to satisfy your partner.
I would say go take a Viagra.
Or take a Viagra.
Or take some Trimex.
But like communicating wise, I feel like no matter what, even if it's something that's embarrassing, if it's your partner, it's definitely a conversation to have and not to hide from them or feel bad about. There is a lot of shaming that goes around about ED, and I feel like that is like something that should change. It's kind of relatable to just like who women have miscarriages, hide it, and when they start talking, people realize, oh, they had a miscarriage too, and it's not as like,
yeah,
it's more common than and I feel like ED runs in that same kind of lane with men, and I feel like it's something that people shouldn't shame someone for, or it's something that naturally happens. It's known.
We haven't really experienced, I will say I haven't really experienced like ED with you. Like there's been times where I'm just not like in the mood, or we're like having a low sex drive because we're just like not in the mood that day. But I can't remember the last time, if ever, it's just been like we're really going at it and I wasn't able to get aroused for you or erect. But I've had it more happen in like casual interactions.
Oh yeah.
And with friends that I've spoken with and we've talked about like shared stories, it's usually with the casual interactions.
Yeah. 100.
Yeah. Where like it wasn't like their like long-term boyfriend or girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I've acknowledged that I think there's a lot to it that's mental, and there's stress and all that stuff that, you know, examining that part of like, but when it's a casual interaction, you know, it's hard. I think it'd be hard to have that conversation. I think it's just like, oh, hey, it's not working right now. Like I've done that where it's just like, that's not going to work right now.
Well,
Let's try something else.
I think it's also something to say where it's like, I feel like once you think you have ED and you have that implanted in your head, you know, every time you have sex, it's like you're focused on it and you put so much pressure on yourself. So if it's just a night where maybe you're too tired, maybe you ate something bad, maybe who knows what's going on and it doesn't work, don't right away jump and think you have ED right away. Because once you put that in your head, you know, then you're always like watching for it. You're always thinking about it. And I feel like that is kind of where it spirals. And, you know, that's what did happen to me once. And you just got to kind of, you know, instead of like worrying about it, just do preventative measures to like make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah. And I think there's, you know, a one-time ED that just like in the moment happened, and then there's chronic ED, you know, and kind of acknowledging that on this video, like don't want to just mean like, because there's different variations of that. Like if you're having like chronic ED where like you're just like every interaction you're having for like 6 months, like something's or like even a month, like that's probably something you need to check your doctor with. Yeah. But like you know, if you're having just like a one-off or something, like maybe there is all that stuff like that goes into play.
And like going into that, you know, there are many things you can do. There's Viagra, there's Cialis. There, you know, used to be only get them through a doctor, but now you can, you know, you can go to Hims, and there's, oh my God, I see commercials all the time. There's ways to get it that you don't have to go to your primary physician. You know, there are even, you know, kind of more in-depth things like Trimex and Bimex, which is more of an injection route, but there are ways to do it for sure.
I feel like a lot of people are still, like, I know we know about it because we're in the industry, but like Trimex and Bimex, I feel like that's a couple years ago, like no one knew what that was, and now people are kind of starting to know
the
what
idea of it at first is terrifying.
It's terrifying.
Because it's like you inject you have a needle and it goes into your dick.
Yeah, you basically with that it is a prescription that you get from your doctor, but you put it in a little insulin needle and you do inject it into the base, so it goes into the tubes that like collect all the blood and whatnot, and then it makes you hard for like 2 to 4 hours. You don't want to be harder than that. Yeah. Longer than that. But so it's like a Viagra, but like a, you know, like Viagra, you still kind of have to get aroused, but this, it's like you're just for like a couple hours, no matter what you want to do.
No matter what. But, you know, it's always, you need to like make sure you know what you're doing with it. And there is like an antidote needle that will go in afterwards if it doesn't go down. And, you know, it's something that's a little more cautionary, but it is kind of something you could do to help that. I recommend taking the Viagra Cialis route first.
Yeah.
But
it's definitely more popular in the adult industry.
Yeah.
I know like a lot
in the gay community.
Yeah. I mean a lot of adult industry people do use it because when you're on set, like it doesn't matter if you're on set with the hottest guy, you know, you're there for like 4 hours to 8 hours, and it's stop and go angles, you know, trying to see what the best lighting is. So there's a lot of in between time. And, you know, those kind of, I would say like Trimex does make those, that time go by a lot faster because you're not having to being fully erect. That's one thing you don't have to worry about in between all that stuff. You can just go. So but everyone's doing something. If anyone does adult content says they're not, you know, doing Viagra or some sort of supplement to get them through the scene, like even if they're aroused by their partner naturally, like you just need that stuff. It's happened. Yeah. And if they say they don't use it, they're lying.
Yeah. But overall, that's kind of all I really wanted to talk about with it. Is there anything you wanted to say? I mean, I hope if you have any more questions about kind of the treatments for it, or if you have a story, if you're a straight person that's a straight man that's listening, and it's a conversation you've had to have like with a wife or a girlfriend, like I'd love to hear that. Because that's kind of not really in our wheelhouse. But, you know, ED is something that is more common than most people think. I feel like, you know, I'm in my 30s. I don't think I have it like, what did you call it? Chronic versus
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if that's the exact term.
Well, yeah,
I just mean like
we're not doctors.
erectile. Some people hear erectile dysfunction and they're like, okay, that's like something you get diagnosed with.
Yeah.
But like if you just had like a couple instances where you just, I think we've all been there where you just like it just wasn't working that night.
Or maybe you just had a bad depressive week. And
you
you're
just
down.
can't. But sometimes it just doesn't work. And I think that's what I didn't grow up knowing is that there's gonna be times where just it doesn't want to work.
Mhm.
And like don't feel bad or feel ashamed. Like your thing is not meant to work 100% 24/7 365 days a year. It needs some off time and it's going to have down days.
Yeah.
So
and again, like I said, to take the organic route first, there's a vitamin called macaroot. I do recommend it. I take 2 or 3 a day, and I think after like 6-ish months or whatever, it was really,
I definitely
really
noticed
working.
the difference when you were coming off doing the finasteride and some other stuff where you just felt like it just wasn't working the way you wanted it to.
Yeah.
We did have some of those tough conversations because it was times where like you wanted it to, but there also was times where you felt like your sex drive wasn't there.
Yeah,
Like you'd be like I haven't been horny all week, and we'd have to have that kind of.
I had low testosterone. I
Yeah.
feel like I had both going on at once,
Yeah.
honestly.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't like ED necessarily. It was also just not feeling in the mood.
It was just also, I feel like it was like environmental ED. You know what I mean? It wasn't like something that was going to be forever. It just what was going on health-wise in my life. That's just what happened. And I figured it out.
we had open communication about it. And there was, there's always like those ups and downs of like not wanting to talk about it or how do you talk about it. And it's just, I know for, I guess like going on that example, like, feeling like, oh, is it me? Like, am I not like arousing you enough? And then just like, we had those tough conversations and like, they're hard to have.
Yeah.
They're hard to have. But
I also feel at the time I never did Viagra or Cialis or anything like that. And I feel like growing up and learning about it, it was like, oh, once you use that, it's like you've given up, and that's you have to use that forever. Yeah,
and
it's
I
that's
did
not
think that too. I was like, oh, it's not addictive, but like now you're gonna be reliant on it.
And that's not true. At all.
Yeah.
So
I do remember thinking that, but once you use the macaroot, I definitely felt like there was a huge shift of you feeling more in the mood, and then once you got there. I saw like the excitement come back, and once the excitement was back of like enjoying the moment and not feeling in your head of like what's gonna work and what's not gonna work, then you just got to let go, and it just like slowly just like came back. I think the biggest thing that I've also had to work on as a partner is in those moments is like you can't. If you do take it personally and you express that in irritation of like, oh well, this is happening again, or oh,
it makes it worse.
I must not be good enough. It's hard, but like it does like it's counterproductive to the situation, and it just 100%. Ends up making the partner feel worse.
Yeah.
So like you both have to work on just being patient with each other, and like if you are in a long-term relationship and you're doing that, like it's about just remembering like, and I had to tell myself this all the time, like, and I was horrible at it, but just remembering that we are a team, we're in this together, we want to work through this together, like it's not personal. Like, and that was my biggest obstacle that I had to overcome when that was going on. And I know that I was far from perfect and far from being good at it. And I made a bunch of mistakes that were counterproductive to the situation that probably made it worse at the time. But I do feel like we worked through it. And that was something that was an obstacle that we had to overcome in our relationship.
And now it's not even, it's easy breezy.
Yeah.
So, but that's all we have for
today. It has
been.
You get off more than I do lately.
Yeah.
I like
it. It comes and goes. It's like a roller coaster.
No. Well, and everyone's comes and goes. No, we're not going to be on the same page all the time.
But that's all we have for today.
I'm being cut off.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.